moving on. There's something interesting. Little fact I want to bring up. The eight seeded Suns in the West are closer to the first seeded Wolves in the West than the second seeded Cavs are to the first to the first seeded Celtics in the East. So basically, the 8 seed in the West is closer to the first seed in the West than the second seed in the East to the first seed in the East.
Basically, it's the Celtics, the entire Western Conference, and then the Cavs.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I could have just worded that a lot better. Yeah, for sure.
It's insane.
So the divide is insane between both conferences. And why do you think that is, though?
I mean, traditionally, it's just always been
The West.
the West is the stronger
For
conference.
the last couple of years, I would say the East didn't make a really big comeback. Like
For-
2022.
For
2021.
1 year, yeah.
For like, I was like 3 years. 3 years, I would say.
And look where they are now.
But why? Like, why did that happen? Dame just came to Milwaukee. Like, how does the East still struggle so much?
I think people don't want to play in the East. Like, I think a lot of it comes down to, like, a lot of the teams in the West are just much nicer to be in. Like, you know, would you rather play in a nice, warm city like LA? Or are you going to come to, like, somewhere that gets cold, like New York? You know what I mean? And nobody wants to play in New York either.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
biggest stage in the world.
This is the biggest stage, but how come one of your best players is Julius Randle?
Facts, bro. Like, oralist team, bro.
Man,
Like,
nobody wants to fucking play in New York.
like Miami, like, I mean,
Miami's
You
nice.
could play in Miami, but like I don't know, man. I feel like people just want to play in the West. Like when you look at it, like the biggest stars in the league, a lot of them are in the West, and I feel like a lot of people just lean more towards like I think I just want to play in the West, and that's where the competition goes. It could also be like just the fact that you know like Jokic and like and they were drafted in the West, so maybe the West they just know what's good, man. Honestly, like, but I think also like people just want to play there too. You know what I mean? That's why like when you hear trade rumors, it's like he's gonna go to LA. He's gonna go to LA. LA. Right? Like it's always like that. Man, like you never hear trade rumors and they're like what's so weird? Like, yo, that guy, he wants to go to Detroit, bro. He wants to play in Detroit.
You got ties in Detroit, yeah.
Like-
Never hear that.
I mean, you do hear the counter, like Victor Oladipo wanted to go to Miami, Damian Lillard wanted to go to Miami.
But it is always Miami, yeah.
yeah,
Well, Miami is a nice place to live too.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm telling you, man. Like, yo, these players, like, I think I don't know, obviously they care about the team, but I think, like, yo, they really take into account, like, okay, where the fuck am I gonna live? Why do you think nobody plays in Toronto?
Yeah.
Fuck, they get double taxed here.
They get double taxed, and it gets cold as shit in the
It's
winters.
cold as shit.
It's
That's
bad.
why I don't fucking play
yeah,
here.
we're just lucky we're used to it.
Yeah.
really.
Well, this year I would say winter was not that bad. Like, I would say it came and went, and like I'm kind of surprised.
Okay, yeah, because they didn't hit -30 this year, which is
No,
pretty good.
they didn't.
Yeah.
But sorry, to answer your question, I just think people would prefer to
Playing the
there.
West.
So I feel like the competition naturally shifts and goes towards the West.
Right.
That's a valid reasoning.
Yeah. And I would say the Pacific Division alone, like all 5 of those teams, you'd rather just play there. Like
That's
the
what
West
I'm
Coast,
saying.
yeah. So
It's so much nicer.
that definitely makes more sense. But even still, like, I guess the teams in the East that are at the bottom are just like, I would say the Magic are a team that probably would garner some interest for stars. Like living in Orlando, like that's not bad at all.
That's
Like,
Orlando, man.
yeah, so, but they're just so far down that no one would want to play there. Even like I guess Chicago, like maybe Chicago would also garner the same kind of thing, but they're just so far down.
Market too.
Yeah.
I think about market.
But also thinking about history, you could argue that the East has a lot of good like, historical achievements, like Bad Boy Pistons. Look at MJ's Bulls.
Right.
Look at New York Knicks. Like they were actually a very solid team back then. So I think it's just a cultural shift right now, where everyone more approves of the West just being like, well, we're the Great West. Like everyone moves to the North Americas.
Yeah.
And everyone just carries that mindset in NBA. All right, let's move west instead of staying on the East Coast.
Yeah. That's actually an interesting perspective for sure. Like, I guess the East just has no real, like, you just don't want to build anything there right now.
What if in 10 years everything becomes the East? Like I wouldn't be surprised. It's just
Definitely.
the powers just keep just turning,
Yeah.
and then soon it's going to be a middle.
Right.
All the
And-
good teams are in the middle of the states.
Never. No one's going to Memphis.
No
But
one's going
Go
to
to Memphis.
Denver, Utah.
well, Denver's been pretty good. Like that's pretty good. But
Which is funny. It's not a free agent destination too, but
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
They built through the draft.
Utah's not a free agent destination either, so
Why would-
yeah, those teams are hella competitive still.
I think maybe the main thing is that, like, let's say the Spurs, like, them getting Wemby, the Spurs, like, before they got Wemby, is like, no one is gonna go there. Like, but now that they get Wemby, like, you can start to see like their market increasing just because of one player. Like, I guess drafting well, it does change a lot too.
That
Like,
is.
if you draft someone like, let's say Anthony Edwards, like, obviously now they can't because they have Gobert, but let's say they still have Towns, Edwards, and they have space for like one guy on a max. I wouldn't be surprised if a star wanted to go to Minnesota to play with Ant, because Ant is like such a character.
Speaking of Ant, he's just changed his game time decision to healthy.
Good job, bro. Good job.
You get the notifications?
Yeah,
do.
fantasy.
Redo
And-
also?
And they always tell me that they're injured. You know, I just put Karis LeVert on my team and he's out. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Did you drop him?
No, what happened was I picked up like DeAndre Hunter or something, and then I was like,
Damn.
oh, I have Bogdan, right? I have
Yeah.
Bogdanovic. I was like, okay, I can't have him. So I immediately had to drop him, and I was like, okay, then I guess I'll pick up like Karis LeVert. I was like, Karis LeVert's pretty solid.
Mm.
And then now he's fucking out. I was
Oh
like,
man, I know
That's
your
the
pain.
worst. That's the worst.
I needed. So I finished this 1 week in 9-cat, where I was down 3 rebounds. So
Yeah.
before, like obviously on Sunday, I picked up someone that was gonna grab boards. In the last like 3-4 games, Santi Aldama, like 8 boards, 9 boards, 7 boards. I'm like, okay, so he'll get me a decent amount of boards.
Solid.
I pick him up, he's out due to concussion. I'm like, bro, they tell me like an hour before the game starts. I think teams gotta do, well, maybe it's Yahoo, but like some teams I feel like just don't get out their injury reports
On time.
fast. Yeah,
Embiid
like,
in Denver.
yeah, like Embiid sits out like
Yo, why
the
you
hour
ducking?
before.
Why you ducking?
Dude, that
Is
is
bad.
bad, bro.